Everybody, and welcome to Tuesday Training. I hope you're having a fantastic week. As always,
we are live from Austin, Texas, right here at Insurance Syndicate headquarters. And man, we have a great show for you.
Good morning. What is happening? It's Tuesday morning. Hope you guys are doing fantastic. It is 9:02 a.m. Central Time right here live in Austin, Texas, right here at Insurance Syndicate headquarters. Hope you guys are doing well, man. This coffee, you can't read it probably because maybe it's backwards, but it says this coffee is making me awesome. I like it because it's a take on Seinfeld's These Pretzels Are Making Me Thirsty. But there we go. Man, thanks for tuning in. Today's going to be maybe a little shorter episode. I don't know. See how much I want to ramble. I want to go over some notes that I took from the 8% Nation Conference. I want to talk about that a little bit. Before I do, of course, this show is always, is brought to you by DFY CRM, my CRM of choice. And man, Tim and Eric are doing some amazing things. They're right now, I think they're getting ready for an event that they're about to do on CRM basics or CRM, advanced CRM training and building out stuff. But if you look inside their CRM, man, it is dope. Some of the stuff they built. So if for any reason, I think I say this about every episode, but if for any reason, if you're still an agent without a CRM, man, you need to get it together. Your spreadsheet ain't going to cut it, brother. You got to upgrade your life and your system and your business. Get you a good CRM. Call my buddies over at DFY. They will show you what it's about. But with that said, man, a couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity or took the opportunity to go to another 8% Nation conference thrown by my good buddy, Cody Askins. I think that's the 7th one that I've been to. I missed the very first one that he threw in Nashville at Titan Stadium, and he did a smaller one in Springfield one year that I missed. Other than that, I've been to all of them that are in Dallas, I guess I should say, and I've been to a lot of his road shows. I even went on tour with him for 10 cities. We hit 10 cities in 10 months doing road shows and having a blast. But I will tell you, of all of the 8% Nation events that I've been to, this was the best one, bar none. This was the best one from beginning to end, all things considered. All things considered. Like there's definitely been some higher level speakers at some of the previous events. I mean, one year we had Michael Irvin as the keynote speaker. That was the very first year I went. It was amazing. Another year we had Ed Milet and Jesse Itzler on the same day, even as I remember correctly, which was unbelievable. We've had Patrick Bet-David at that event. So he's had some super high-level speakers before, and he definitely still had some high-level speakers. Not maybe as many as some of the previous year's events. Ticket prices have also gone down as an example. And there's a whole bunch of reasons that we can sit and spin that out. But what I really want to talk about is, number one, the quality event. Why you probably want to go next year. And I'm not here shilling for 8%. I don't get paid for that. But it is an event that I believe in for one primary reason. Ultimately, 8% Nation changed my life. I've talked about this before. My wife was not in the business. Me and her were not business partners. I was working for Precision Senior Marketing when I discovered the whole 8% Nation community movement event, conference, whatever you want to call it. And that opened my wife's eyes up, Grace. And next thing you know, she comes back next year to that same event, has her license. And now here we are, fast forward 7 years later, and we're running an IMO together. Pretty phenomenal. And we have more freedom, more fun, and more access to things that normally we wouldn't have access to. So from that small perspective, not even small, but from that perspective, 8% Nation changed my life. And I'm not the only one that feels that way. I've got friends in the industry, super successful friends, people like Rebecca Davis, Medicare Wonder Woman, feels the same way, right? So do not listen to some of the negative hubbub about that event. 8% Nation, I will tell you, and I will stand 10 toes firm and tell you that it is ground zero for a lot of the things you see in the insurance industry today. None of the, for example, on the simplest level, none of the events that we're exposed to now, none of them were around until 8% Nation came around and showed agents, showed people that, hey, events work. People want events. And most of those people throwing events now, including me, when we've thrown Invictus, we've done 3 Invictus events in the past, which is a Spanish conference. They all became about because of 8% Nation. And as much as that is a cool thing, at the same token, Cody also created his own problem there, because through creating those events, now attendance is spread over events. People can't go to all of them, so they have to pick and choose. And just like I said, hey, ticket prices have had to come down because of that to get the attendance back up. But there was easily 1,000 people there, no joke. They had to bring out more seats at the end of it. The event center was absolutely jam-packed. My favorite part of the whole event, and this is really, in my opinion, what made it the best event, period, right, was the cadence that they ran the event. So if you've been to 8% Nation before, you may remember, and this is certainly true about a lot of conferences, that they'll put you in general session where you got several hundred people, in this case, 1,000 people around you, and they just barrage you with main stage speakers for 4 hours, 4.5 hours, 5 hours before you get any real break, before you break for lunch. You're all just sitting there in that main general session. And then maybe the next day, they'll start off the morning with some breakout sessions to get everybody tuned up on some specific topics they want to practice or learn. And then it goes back to general session, and maybe they repeat that cadence, something like that, which is fine. But there's only so much that a person can handle sitting in a general session conference room and just getting barraged with speaker after speaker after speaker after speaker after speaker. Like at some point, your mind really does start to check out. Like maybe 2 to 3 hours is about all I would say the average person can really handle. So Cody's crew did a really good job breaking this up. As an example, day 1 started at 5 p.m. Right, that was a Tuesday evening session, and they went for 3 hours from 5 to 8, and that was it. Cody spoke. I'm going to get into some of the speakers there. Coach Burt was one of the first speakers. Wasn't Rocky Carter. He didn't speak till day 2. I'm trying to remember who else spoke on that day. I can't remember right off the top of my head. It's in my notes here, though, as we go through it. So I'll pick that up with you. So again, Tuesday started not till 5 p.m., right? 3 hours, 5 to 8. Then it's over. We had a little welcome social. The next day, it started with breakout sessions from 8 to like 9:30. So he had, I think, two 45-minute breakout sessions. And then we went into general session for 2 hours and then came back out, went to lunch. Then we went to learning labs for, again, another hour and a half, where they had 45-minute deep dive learning labs, and then back into general session for a couple hours to close out the day, right? So it was a really cool cadence of mixture of things that you can do, learn, tap into. The learning labs, the breakout sessions, the private panels were all exceptional. I participated in a couple. I moderated one panel. I sat in a marketing panel and gave my thoughts. And then I certainly just sat and listened to several of them. Were very, very good. Anything from learning AI for your CRM or just tools. Alex Branding did a great job breaking down some AI. Dave and L. Denning did some great work on a panel not a panel, but in a workshop on AI for social media. Gave away the prompt, gave away the whole thing, and they helped several people figure out how they can create massive amount of content very quick using AI. Not necessarily creating AI content. I want to be real clear about that, even though the AI is creating some of it. Their real method was in understanding how to use AI to create the type of content that you should be putting out, right? So really, their panel was, or not panel, but their breakout session was super cool. But that cadence again, right? So we weren't just sitting in general session for 4 to 5 hours. We had a good mix where about every hour and a half to 2 hours, there was something else going on to kind of keep you moving, keep your mind fresh, keep you engaged, etc. That alone was exceptional, right? So day one was Tuesday, short day from 5 to 8. Day two was that cadence I talked about, open up in the morning for an hour and a half of breakouts, general session for a couple hours, boom, break for lunch, come back for learning labs for another couple hours, and then boom, back in general session. And then on the last day, it was the same thing with one exception. It was a little longer day. After the dinner break, he had another closing talk from Tim Tebow, which was second time I've had a chance to see Tim Tebow, both at 8%. Absolutely exceptional. Tim Tebow is the man. That was an absolute amazing talk that he gave to close out the entire event. And then we had the premiere party with the Emerald City Band, #1 cover band on planet Earth, something like that. They're exceptional. I've seen them several times at 8%. So all in all, smoking hot event. Tickets are like a tenth of the price they used to be. I mean, I'm just saying. I would highly encourage you to go to the next one, right? I would highly encourage you to go to the next one because I do believe he will keep it fairly similar. I would expect that same type of cadence, lots of breakouts, lots of workshops that are going to give you the chance to dive deeper into certain categories that you know you can get nuggets from to help grow your business, right? Because ultimately in an event, if you can just get one good idea that you can take back and execute, boom, you're in like Flynn. So with that said, I want to go through some speakers into some of the takeaways that I got from the event. And we'll probably have this done before 10 a.m. If you guys have any questions, drop them in the comments. I'm watching them right here and happy to chat. And yes, Mr. Pomerantz, Eric and Tim are doing some amazing things. So very first speaker out of the gate was Coach Burt. If you've seen Coach Michael Burt, he is definitely one of those guys that has a ton of energy, very intense speaker, and certainly has quite a few platitudes that he likes to use. But very cool dude. And if you've seen him speak, one of the things that I really liked about his talk this time, because I've probably seen him speak 7 or 8 times. I've seen him speak at 8% probably 3 times. I introduced him at Medicare Con in Alabama and listened to him talk. I've seen him at SWAT a couple of times. I mean, I've definitely been exposed to Coach Burt quite a bit. Outstanding speaker, 100%, very cool dude. And again, very intense. And his message was still on the same vein that he normally talks about in regards to person of interest, igniting your prey drive, right, to find and go achieve your goals. But he's got something like 12 or 15 books that he's written. I might be off on that number, but I'm pretty sure it's double digits. And he has a new book that, as I understand, if I got the title right, it is Screw Your Why. And I thought that was super interesting because everybody, but a lot of people in this industry talk about, hey, you know, because insurance is hard, right? We already know the stats. More than 90% of people fail in their first couple of years. So one of the things that we all talk about, since it's both one of the easiest industries to make money, but one of the hardest industries to actually stay consistent and develop a business through, is everybody talks about your why. What is your why? What's your purpose? Why are you doing this? Right. And he said, screw your why. And his big thing was like, what you need to do. He's like talking about your why or finding your why doesn't solve all of your problems. And he said, instead, and I'll be honest, I feel like he's kind of splitting hairs here, but I get what he's saying. He said, instead of finding your why, because your why doesn't solve all your problems, you should find your because goals. What are your because goals? In other words, what goals do you have that cause you to do what you do? Again, I kind of feel like that splitting hairs, that's basically your why. These are the goals I have, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing. That's my why. So it's kind of, I think he's kind of splitting hairs on that, but I get where he's coming from, right? And ultimately his thing is like, what you want to do is find also behind your because goals is what is the skill that allows you to do what you do at a successful pace, at a successful clip. And what is that primary skill? Because not only is that skill going to help you find purpose, but ultimately, what is behind that skill? What is the unique problem that that skill solves for people? And if you can figure that out, what is your primary skill? And understand what is the unique problem that skill solves for people, then that's how you can then package it up and monetize it. Because that's the skinny, right? Find it, package it, market it, monetize it. Pretty simple, right? So as the easiest example, I know most of you guys that sit into this group or sit into this call with me are Medicare geeks, right? So just on a simple basis, like one of your primary skills could be to take a confusing topic and make it relatable, understandable, and simplified, right? Good skill. What is the unique problem that your skill solves? Well, Medicare is complicated. People need it simplified, right? So pretty simple. So you can run workshops about Medicare to simplify the problem, attract people to you. They see that you can make it easy for them, and boom. And one of the other things he talked about was that skills and talents are not the same. Talents are sometimes things that are just granted to us, whereas skills are a learned behavior, right? You're able to run fast. That's a talent. And certainly you can sharpen it as a fast running skill, but ultimately you're born with the talent of running fast. Whereas a skill, again, is something that has grown, sharpened, and developed. It's a behavior. So again, just going to click it one more time. You are uniquely qualified to help the person who you used to be. What is your primary skill, and what is the unique problem that skill resolves? Fairly simple. That was Mr. Coach Burt. Then Cody came out and he talked about visibility being your responsibility. And this was an understanding that in today's world, attention is very much currency, right? And how do we get more currency? We generate more attention. So similar concept would, on a very basic scale, would be blowing up your social media so that people are paying attention to you, growing a YouTube channel like my wife has done as an example, like many other people have done, so that people can see you and pay attention to you, right? Through that attention, you can generate business. It's not rocket science. And then kind of a takeaway from that is that best known beats the best. We're ranked number 1 now in Cedar Park as a health insurance agency. So based on that metric, you could say we're the best. But if we're not the best known, who gives a shit if we're the best? Nobody cares, right? So best known beats best. And I've seen that repeated time and time again. So you have to figure out a way to go from unknown to seen, from seen to remembered, from remembered to trusted, and from trusted to chosen. And I want to hit on this real quick. From remembered to trusted. We're in an where's my pen? I don't have a pen in front of me. All right. We're in an interesting space right now in the way that technology, social media, marketing, website is all evolving because of AI. I was listening to a really, really good, I will find it. This is a talk that I'm probably going to do next week. I found a really cool video that talked about why developing websites is old technology now. It's in some space. Like, don't just develop a website. That's not really what you need, right? Trying to outrank everybody on Google is not the new, it's not the new way. That's the way that's going out of style. What you have to do is now everything's being sourced by AI. So how can I get AI to trust me that I am the trusted authority? So when people are asking a question online, right, that AI finds my website or finds my content and pushes it out there as the trusted authority. So when Cody was going through this, and I was thinking about that as well as an overlapping deal, that, hey, we're going from just a ranking contest on Google, like who can get to the top based on keywords, to now when people go in and they go to Google, like they're not just doing goofy keywords like, hey, where's or Spanish Medicare or something like that. They're asking direct questions, like they're starting to have a conversation with Gemini or whatever it is, right there inside of Google. And we have to develop our content so that AI agents believe that we are the trusted source, and they deliver our content right straight to the person that's trying to have that conversation, or they answer their questions straight through our content. And at some point that will go as far as booking appointments and so forth right through our content. So you got to go from trusted to chosen, and understanding that we are in a space where AI is going to be the thing that has to trust you is an interesting spot to be in order to get the attention that we need. Because number two, attention has to be created, captured, and repeated. Right? A simple lesson on this, right? I told my wife a long time ago that, hey, once you start your YouTube channel and you get that momentum moving, you'll never be able to let up on the gas, as much as I hate to tell you that. Like, that's not a thing you can ever stop, because as soon as you stop that channel, the attention that you get will completely lose momentum. And you will always have to continue to throttle up on that, right? Just like anything else. I mean, so you could say the same thing for life insurance sales for sure. Technically any kind of sales, but especially life insurance sales. As soon as you quit selling life insurance, you kind of quit feeding yourself, because that is a little bit of a eat what you kill game. So again, attention has to be created, captured, and repeated. And your revenue obviously follows attention. Number three in his talk was that belief creates your visibility, because you won't promote something that you don't believe in, right? If you don't believe that a Medicare Advantage plan can be a good option for a client, you won't promote it. If you don't believe Medicare Supplement is the better option for a client in some instances, you won't promote it. If you don't believe that hospital indemnity is an excellent product to pair with every Medicare Advantage plan you sell, if you don't believe that, you won't promote it. So if you don't believe in it, you won't promote it. You have to believe in what you're selling, right? And ultimately, again, most people need to see you 16 times to believe you, right? And there's been numerous studies on this from touch points and everything. But again, now we're talking about it from the aspect of gaining attention to generate trust. People have to see you online. They have to see your brand. They have to see your face. They have to see your content about 16 times before they actually believe you and might consider you an authority. So the final message there was, where are you hiding? And why are you cowering to the competition who is out there online? So ultimately, you just got to give them something to see. Ultimately, you got to give them something to see, because attention is currency. Next one that I got that I was super impressed with was Mr. Rocky Garza. That was one of my favorite talks in the entire thing, was listening to Rocky. I got a lot out of him. I'm just flipping through some of these, but his whole talk was about what it means to just be a human. What does it mean to just be human? Because he felt like most issues, and this was one of the notes that I have here, most issues involving businesses are a human problem. And then he gave us 4 specific items in that regards. If you're listening and maybe you're taking notes, I would write this shit down. Thoughts, focus, right? Focus, energy, and action. He says that 75% of the change that you're looking for, whether it be in your business or in your life, have nothing to do with your movement and more to do with what you're thinking. So what are your thoughts? One of the questions that he asked in that regards is, what do you really want? And he challenged us. Like, he made everybody stop, take a couple of moments, write down what you really, really want. And then he made us share it with people around us, right? We didn't have to share it with the whole audience, but we had to look at the person to our left, right, shake hands, smile, introduce ourselves, and tell them what we really wanted. So number 1, do you know what you really want? Number 2, this was where it started to get a little rough. What does pretending cost you? Right? So if the first question I ask you is, what do you really want? What is it that you're trying to achieve? And then secondarily, are you pretending to go after that? Or are you actually doing the things that allow you to go after them? This goes back to Coach Bert's talk, like, screw your why, find your because goals. So what are your because goals? What are the goals that you have that cause you to do what you do? Is that in line with what you really want? And are you just pretending to chase it, or are you actually going after it? And then the big question in there was, what does pretending actually cost you, right? Whether you're pretending to be authentic, or whether you're pretending that, oh, what I want is to be successful and rich, or I want to build an agency, or I want to do this, or I want to do that, right? Are you pretending that that's what you really want? Or is that what you really want? And again, what does pretending chase you or cost you? And ultimately, like kind of in that same vein, one of the other questions he threw in there was that, are you talking about who you're becoming, or are you still talking about who you were? Are you talking about who you're becoming, or are you still talking about who you were? Right? Are you Ed O'Neill and Married with Children, always sitting around talking about the football hero that he was? Or are you talking about who you're becoming? And then one of the final questions he asked us on that, I got a few other ones, but what makes you human? What makes you human? And if you can understand that, what makes you human is also what makes you remarkable. So his whole thought process on this, to go back to it, and I asked you to write down 4 words if you are taking notes, and that was thoughts, focus, energy, action. Your thoughts will direct your focus, which allows you to put energy into creating action, all on that same line, right? So fairly simple. So his thing was like, you don't need to change your actions necessarily. I mean, you might need to change your actions, but he's like, if all you're doing is changing your actions, you're not going to get what you really want, right? It's like you go to this event, you decide like, hey, maybe I want to lose some weight, so I'm going to go change my actions for a little while at least. Start working out, start eating better. I lose some weight, I start to feel a little better, and then I go somewhere else. Because what I didn't change were my actual thoughts about why maybe I want to have less weight on me, as an example, right? If I change those thoughts and those beliefs first, then it's easier for me to have focused energy and focused action that won't stall, won't stop, won't just be a pastime or a trend for a minute. So thoughts, focus, action, energy. I've got a bunch of notes in here that are just about things that I'm doing here in the office as I was going through all of these processes. I see me writing other things down that I still got to go through and address. Another gentleman, Jason McCool, who is one of Coach Bert's partners, did a whole agency growth blueprint. If you don't know Jason McCool, check him out. He is an extremely successful insurance entrepreneur. He's already built and sold one business. He's building another one. I can't think. Florida Financial Partners. I might be off on that brand, but basically an annuity shop, massive annuity shop, and they are valued somewhere like the valuation's gross. I think it's like $560 million is what the tentative valuation on his company is, which is just obscene. His goal is to get it to $1 billion. Kim, I got those from printpps.com. She's asking where I got my notepads. They're not here in front of me. They're in a box behind me, but just little 4x6 inch branded notepads that I use for seminars. Printpps.com. Great vendor and very fast. They have all kinds of goodies. Anyway, Jason McCool gave away an agency growth blueprint. And there's 3 formulas that he included that I want to give you guys. First was the success formula, which is pretty simple. We've seen this before, just worded differently. And that was activity times conversion times case size. In other words, your total amount of revenue is directly related to the frequency and size of problems that you solve, is basically what he's saying, right? Activity being frequency, and conversion rate, and then obviously how big of the problem that you're selling there or solving. So activity times conversion times case size. His second thing was the scale formula. Is your success based on the success formula times the number of working weeks you have in the year. Fairly simple. And then finally, your recruiting formula is number of applicants by the number of interviews, by the number of offers, by the number of accepted offers, and then finally their first sale. Like that should be the pipeline in recruiting. Let me get a bunch of applicants. Let me get them to attend their interviews. How many offers am I extending? How many people are accepting the offer? And then how many of them are making their first sale? Pretty simple. That was his recruiting formula. And then finally, and one of the things that he said that I thought was super interesting, actually, in his organization, he considers and he trains everybody so that every single person involved in his organization is in leadership. Brand new recruit, just got through training, maybe made their first sale as an example. He might already have that person doing interviews, not because he's trying to, just to be clear on this, not because he's trying to just turning into a recruiting machine where all these people do is recruit and they don't sell, but because they need to learn the activity of interviews. That's part of their training. That's part of their leadership. So if someone else can't jump in and do these interviews for all these recruits that are coming in, all these applicants, this person can also step up, conduct interviews. They're learning the leadership process as they go. Fairly simple. I think that's extremely, extremely savvy. And on that kind of note, because there's a bunch of people I know out there that I've talked to, they're like, oh man, an agent should never be recruiting until they've sold 1,000 apps. Okay. Or until 2,000 apps, or until their business is worth at least $300,000 in annual revenue. Okay, whatever. I would totally disagree with that. I think it depends on your organization. I like the way he's talking about it here, where I'm teaching them leadership skills. So yes, I'm going to have them involved in the recruiting process at some level, even at the very beginning, right after we hire them. We're going to teach them, like in addition to teaching them how to sell, we're going to teach them how to conduct the first interview, so that they can start stepping in and doing that. Makes complete sense to me. And for all those agents that disagree with that, like if you're in a model that is a quote unquote recruiting model, right, where the whole goal of the organization is recruit through growth because you can't grow without people. And you're like, hey, how do I recruit? How do I get people on my team? Apparently, Jimmy said I can't recruit anybody until I've at least written 1,000 apps. Okay, fine. Recruiting and training and managing are two different things. Training and managing is a part of recruiting, right? Recruiting is just going out there as a marketing campaign to attract people. The next level of is training and developing. So maybe you, because you haven't written 1,000 apps yet, just hear me out. Maybe you shouldn't necessarily be training and developing a new agent. But if you have a really good mentor that's helping you get to your first benchmark of 1,000 apps, then why can't you recruit people to bring to him to let him train and develop and help you build your crew that way? Seems like a pretty smart thought. I would say so. But you have to have a good mentor that can actually help you with that and do that, right? And maybe build in some structure for it. But there's no reason that you can't start recruiting people on your crew from day one, assuming that you have a smoking upline, right? That will let you introduce people, let them help with the training development. You can assist in that. So you're learning both things at the same time and build your crew. Fairly simple. And then one other thing that he said that I thought was super, super smart, or actually a couple of things. First one is that people will run towards awards and recognition more than money. People will run towards awards and recognition more than money, right? And his example was like pay raise. If you give somebody a little more money, pay raise, they're going to come back to you next year with the same complaints, right? But if you give them awards and recognition and you drive them, that will help them make more money, and they'll run towards that faster. And then finally, he said, you have to grow to the level of leaders. Shit, I can't. Oh, yeah, that you're able to develop. You have to grow to the level of leaders you're able to develop, which means basically you can only grow someone into the same level of leadership that you're capable of. I don't think that's really rocket science. His talk was interesting. It was loaded with information, like deep information. It's more than I could ever write on here. It was wild. It was wild. Like I was sitting in the middle of that talk with him, and I was like, started to get a little brain overload because it was super dense topic. Next up was Ann Byler. Man, if you don't know who Ann Byler is, you've probably never had a pretzel. Ann Byler is the founder and creator of Auntie Ann's Pretzels. And depending on maybe where you are in the country, maybe it's Auntie Ann's Pretzels. Someone got on my case a couple of days ago because I'm like, it's Auntie Ann's Pretzels. I'm like, it's not Auntie Ann's, it's Auntie Ann's. Whatever. Ann Byler is a 70-something-year-old entrepreneur. Now she sold the business. Now she just speaks, writes books, does her thing. And one of her big things is she told her personal story of how everything she went through with Auntie Ann's Pretzels. And I don't have I wrote down a handful of takeaways from her. I do not have the entire tragic story that runs parallel to her building this massive empire of a business. But she went through a ridiculous amount of trials, tribulations, whatever you want to call them, just difficulty. I mean, and tragic, losing a young kid, like just all kinds of stuff, but still overcame. And that was her whole talk was about overcoming and the power of your purpose, or the power of your because goals, as Coach Michael Burt might say. And one of her things right up front, she's like, look, you might get discouraged in your business, but if you learn to push through and finish the job and do it well, you will find encouragement in what you're doing and get rid of that discouragement. And then two other takeaways that she dropped. First one was pretty rough, but it's the tragedy is not in dying, but what dies inside you while you're alive. The tragedy is not in dying, but it's what dies inside you while you're alive. So again, what are you doing with your time? Are you pushing through it? Are you making the best of it? Are you still pretending, like Rocky Garza said? Or are you truly going after your goals and pushing through to finish the job, or letting discouragement drop you out? And then finally, she said, hey, one of your goals should ultimately be, if you want, become so profitable so that you can be charitable. Because ultimately the game is that we give to get so that we can give again, right? Basically reciprocation obligation. I talked about this in our BNI group recently because it's pretty much our philosophy in BNI that we give referrals, attention, right? One-on-ones, so that we can get referrals, attention, one-on-ones, so that we can give again. It's just simple reciprocation there. And then finally, she kind of ended it with, hey, if you want to grow professionally, you have to also grow personally. I think most people would agree with that. Carlos Boozer was a good talk. Short. Carlos Boozer isn't he's a ex-pro basketball player. Very cool dude. Very insightful. Great stories. Not the most polished of speakers, right? He's still probably a little newer at it, but that doesn't mean he doesn't have good lessons. And Grace already dropped one of his comments that leaders are great listeners, 100%. You got to be a good listener so that you can lead properly. And I would say one of his other things is that good leaders are also still students. They're students of their craft. They're absolutely students of their craft. There's a few other notes that I got in here. Most of them are a little more personal for me and my business, so I'm going to keep those to myself. I didn't take notes on every single speaker. I took notes on the ones that resonated with me the most. But ultimately, man, it was a solid event. Next year, I would highly encourage you to go. I don't get anything for saying that, but I would definitely encourage you to go, man. I appreciate you guys tuning in. short episode. I just wanted to recap that. Stay tuned next week. We're going to bring some news and some lessons to you. But for now, that is Tuesday training for today. Y'all have an awesome week.